ready to go. All right, perfect.
Can the microphone hear me?
Huh?
Can the microphone hear me?
Yeah, it should. I mean, I can't tell, but better.
Is it plugged in?
What's plugged?
Is
Is
the
what?
microphone?
Yeah, it is. That is good. Thanks. Hmm? Okay. Okay, we're good.
Start.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
Pretend this never happened.
Yeah. Okay, so we were kind of just starting to talk about, I think, Destiny's Family, right?
Do you want me to start back from the beginning though?
No,
Like-
no, because I mean I already have the other video, and I can
Oh,
so I
okay,
can
so
just
we
use
don't
both
have
of
to
them.
go through.
Oh no, no, no.
Oh,
Of course,
good,
gosh, no.
okay. I was like, I don't want to repeat.
Yeah, no,
that.
you don't have to. Don't worry.
Okay, good.
So I guess first question. Well, did you ever get a chance to like actually see your mom while you were in foster care?
I don't remember at what point I started being able to see my mom again. I know there was a certain point where I could see her, but only we had like visits, we called them, and you had to have a caseworker in the room with us, and there was like a certain amount of people that had to be there, and it was like really, really strict, and she could only say like certain things or she would get in trouble.
Oh wow.
And I mean, I didn't know that at the time. I just thought she was kind of like just like standoffish, sort of. Like she could only be like, there was just it was really, really strict and just kind of obviously not the same as it used to be. So that was kind of hard. But I think there was like, I could see her like maybe once a month for like a year, and then, but that was only like 1 year period, and then I couldn't see her. So it was like I didn't see her for a year, it seemed like, and then for like a year I saw her, and then sometimes we would have like Christmas parties where like all the foster kids and parents would get together and like get to see their parents on like a Christmas dinner, and then we could like open presents, and so that was a little bit more laid back, and like I remember that a lot. But other than that, it was just kind of awkward visits in a little like office room, and
Do you remember the first time you actually like saw your mom again?
well, the time that I remember the most was when it was right when they told me, I think it was when they told me I was going to be adopted, and because they had told my mom like she lost her case pretty much, and then so I had one like chance to go see her, you know, and like sort of in a way like in my mind it was saying our goodbyes sort of, so it was really hard, but I hadn't seen her in, I think it was like a year and a half, 2 years I hadn't seen my mom, and so that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And we had to drive down to Newport to go to the DHS office, and I remember walking in, and she used to be so skinny and like petite and just so tiny. Like the way I remember her was like she had her wigs because the hair loss issue, you know, and she was just so like so fragile and little. That was something else. I've never really got to the bottom of it, and she doesn't even really know the answer. But her hair loss issue didn't have to do with the drugs. But they tried telling me that she got crazy and like ripped her own hair out, and none of that was true. None of that at all. And so in my head, like I had pictures of my mom going crazy, you know, and because of these drugs, and she couldn't give them up at all. When absolutely none of that was true. But in my mind, like that's what I believed all these years. So I was really scared to go see her my first time, and I resented her so much by then.
Yeah.
And because this is now, I'm like, I'm getting adopted. She gave up on me. In my head, like I was like, this is it. I'm getting adopted. There's no other choice. I'm getting adopted into this family that I've gotten close with, and then so many things like trust issues were just like broken. You know, I just have I don't want to be with this family anymore. And now my mom gave up on me. It's the mindset I had going to see my mom now. And so we walked in, and I'm expecting to see my tiny little like mom with her wig and like, you know, just like she used to be, and I walk in and she's like put on weight so she looks healthy. Like I didn't know that in my eyes because I was like, what happened to you? But then I come to find out like she grew out her hair again, and she had her natural hair back, and she just looked happy and healthy, and like I don't know, that's what I remember. She was just a totally different person, but she looked like a real person, not like a person who'd been on drugs and skinny with hair loss issues. And yeah, so I don't know, it was just really cool, but it was scary at the same time. Like, I didn't really know how to react. And she said, now when I talked to her about it, she said she felt the same way. She's like, I just didn't know how to react around you because I was scared that you would be scared of me, and I didn't know what you would feel. And like, so we just both had like this, I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And I was only like 9. I mean, I could understand things by then and kind of knew what was going on. So, but that kind of made it easier for me to resent her, sort of. So that was hard too. But other than that, it was just kind of awkward. I just remember we made like some stuff and like we did some crafts. And
Where was it at?
it was at the DHS
Okay.
office in Newport, and I think we had a visit for like 2 hours or something. And I think that day my older brother ended up coming and my little brother ended up coming, so we all got to like kind of be together again. And then it was like, I think it was like 2 weeks after that or something. So I thought that like the adoption would be, it was happening, you know. And then we
Was
found
it
out.
Destiny's Family?
Yeah, so I was gonna get adopted into Destiny's Family, and it was gonna be permanent. But they did tell me that I was gonna be able to see my mom still. And so, I mean, that was really scary for me because of the things that happened while I was living with them in that 4 years. But a couple weeks later, I found out that that a caseworker came to talk to me and told me that my mom won her case because my grandma came down and like fought for her, and like we had pretty much my whole family fighting against DHS because my mom has obviously made a huge change in her life. She's a healthy mom, like, and she changed her whole entire life. And so finally they won the case, and I got to go home after that. But so that was like the first time I saw my mom. It was just like, I don't really know you. Yeah.
So 2 weeks later, then you were able to go home?
Yeah, when we already thought the adoption was happening, and then something happened. I don't even know what happened, but it was like in the newspapers. The headline
so it sounds
of it
like
was
DHS
like
was
DHS was totally against.
bad.
Yeah.
I mean, like the bad guys at this point. Normally
Yeah,
they're
and
supposed
I'm
to be
not
good.
like,
Yeah.
I mean, they are good, and
Mhm.
they just, I don't know what happened, but they were totally against us and didn't want anything to do with my mom. And the headline of the newspaper was like, Grandma defeats DHS, and like there was just a whole bunch of stuff all over it.
Wow.
So
Gives me
it was like a
chills.
huge miracle. And,
Yeah.
like, I'll never ever forget that.
Was your mom praying and a Christian at the time?
Oh yeah, that's when she found God. Was like, I think it was like 2 years into it, maybe. I mean, I'm sure she always knew and heard of God, but she really got into it like around probably just when everyone was battling against her, and she was like totally. She had nowhere else to go. I mean, that's rock bottom. You lose all your kids, you lose everything.
Right.
What else can you do? So.
So she found God though.
Yeah, and that's, she always tells me, like, I always tell her, like, how proud I am of her and how, like, she's my biggest role model, and she's like, no, like, God did it, you know. And it's like, they were not going to win that case. There was 100% sure I was getting adopted. They wouldn't tell me I was getting adopted
Right.
if, like, they wouldn't put me through that if I wasn't going to get adopted.
Yeah.
So it was sure, and that was, I believe it was God, because like I said, I don't even know what happened to when they switched their mind, like changed their mind on the case.
Yeah, that really
But-
is.
How
Yeah.
did Destiny's mom, Karen, act when you weren't going to be adopted and you were going back?
Well.
Was that one of your questions? Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine.
Well, okay, so my foster mom, she was happy when she found out I was getting adopted because I was like her daughter. She, you know, looked at me like her daughter, and she still does, and she just was devastated when she heard that I wasn't getting adopted. And like, I tried to pretend I was devastated, like while I was sitting. I totally remember sitting there finding out that I wasn't going to be adopted, and I had the biggest excitement and joy inside of me. And also I was scared because I didn't know really what was going on with my mom. So I was scared, but like, there was a feeling in me. I was like, this is what's supposed to happen. And then like, I look around and the whole foster family sitting there like bawling their eyes out, and I'm like trying to be sad, but I was really excited.
Yeah.
But that just proves that like, no matter what happened with them, they still will always be family to me.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, exactly. And they,
Yeah, and they would do like having a whole nother family, really it is, but it is still a struggle with the things that happen with them.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I can go into detail about that a little bit more. So back to like yesterday when I was talking, or was it yesterday? The other day.
The
I
other
don't
day,
know.
yeah, Monday.
When I was talking about how, like my first day there was really hard, and like I just wasn't, obviously I didn't even know the family.
Is that when you were
And then,
crying on the floor?
yeah, I was crying on the floor for like 3 hours, and everyone was staring at me. So I felt like that inside me for, I don't know how long, but I remember going to sleep that very first night, like I was still crying, like, you know, that,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
still sort of crying. I just remember feeling like that all day, and I remember like falling asleep in the chair out in the living room, and then they brought me into the bed and like tucked me in and stuff, and then that's sort of just that little like tucking in thing sort of made me feel like, okay, I'll be okay. And then just right off the bat the next day, I feel like we started doing chores, and we started like doing all this stuff, like I had been there forever, and I was just like, what is going on? And so I felt really uncomfortable for a long time there, like, I don't know. And I just remember going out to have fun with them, and they lived in like a house up on a hill with acres of land, and it was like, it was cool, but, and it had like cow farms, and I had never seen any of that stuff before. Like I just lived in my one little house in the middle of town and saw the town. So it was just a lot different. I felt like I was moving to a whole different place when it was just out in Otis. And so we just would go play out in the backyard, and I remember my foster sister Destiny at the time had a broken arm. And we were playing tag, and I like tagged her, and so when I tagged her, somebody like had pushed me into her, so she fell over, so technically I pushed her with her broken arm.
Oh no.
So I got grounded.
Oh no.
And I'd never been grounded before, and so I I remember them grounding me for that, and that was just like the first week I had been there, and I was like, what? Like, what does that mean? And then they told me like, no fun food, and like no pizza, no ice cream, and I was like, no. And like I was terrified, and so then that was like my first impression. That's the first thing I remember, was like getting in trouble there. I don't know why that memory sticks to me so much, but
Yeah.
it just does. And I was like, you guys are cruel. You cannot
Especially
hold
because
ice
it was
cream
an
for
accident.
me. Yeah,
But
and
they
we were
didn't know
playing
you,
a
so they
game.
thought you might have been ornery.
Yeah,
not really
and
known.
they were probably just had all the best intentions, but
Yeah.
in my mind, they were terrible people. And then, you know, they, like I said, they were Christian, and I didn't really know much about that. So that was hard for me too. It's just like a whole different life change. And then after a while, you know, I got used to the chores, I got used to the groundings, I got used to the whole Christian life thing. Like I went to church with them all the time, and I hated the Sunday school thing, but I still did it. But I think that probably was my hardest thing, like finding a relationship with God, was because it was so much like, you have to live like this. And
Yeah.
so I never really wanted to catch on to that, and I was so young, so I don't know if I mean, now I know kids that are like, hallelujah, and they're like
Yeah.
5 years old, and they know everything like more than I do. I'm like, no. But anyways, at that age, I just didn't, everything, that whole life was forced upon me, and I didn't want it. So
Yeah.
that was hard for me. That's always been like a, don't force me to do anything, because if you force me, I won't do it. And that sticks with me today. And so once I got used to all of that, things just, it kind of just started feeling like home and an everyday thing. And I just sometimes remember feeling really, really lonely, and like wondering, you know, where's my mom, and what's going on, and like, is my mom okay? Where's my family? And sometimes I would get to go over and see my little brother and stay the night with like his grandma and him and his dad. And so I remember doing that, and that was always like a really special event, so I could get out of the house and like go see my family. And so that was exciting. But other than that, it was just an everyday, like I just felt like it was dragging on, and I'm like, where am I going from here? And so, and I mean, close with the siblings. Me and Destiny, we fought every single day. We couldn't do the dishes together without fighting.
Oh my
And we had to clean the kitchen every single night after dinner, and we would fight every single night.
Oh my gosh.
And we could not stand each other, and then it was 10 times worse. Well, almost like when a new foster kid would come in that had to share the room with us, so like another girl, we would almost like get so mad at each other, we would gang up on this other person, and we were just bad together.
Oh no.
And it's funny to look at now because we're the best of friends. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't ask for a better friend, and she's my sister. So it's cool to think about now, but we could not get along then, and I didn't want to be there most of the time, and when I would get mad or get in trouble, I would just scream that, like, I just want my home, I want to go home, and I would scream for hours, and I would throw tantrums telling them that I didn't want to live with them anymore, that they weren't my real family. I would just throw crazy fits, and it's embarrassing to think about now, but I was heartbroken in that moment. Like,
Right.
I really did. Yeah, I mean, in their mind, they're probably like, she's throwing another fit, but really, I wanted my mom. Like,
Yeah.
I want my family back, and I want my life
You're
back.
hurting
and so,
and angry.
yeah, and I just had so much anger in me, and I don't think they really realized that, obviously, because they've never been through it, and that bothered me too. Is like, they don't know my pain. They've never been through it, and they just see the kids come in and out every day, and in my mind, like, they didn't care about me because they see all these other kids. But yeah, so that was hard too. And then after a while, like, oh yeah, so me and Destiny would fight all the time. Then I got closer with the other siblings too, and so like when me and Destiny would fight, it was easy because I could like fall back on my other siblings and go hang out with them. And so that's how I started to get closer with the older brother, James. And I always loved hanging out with him and like his friends, because they would like always play Xbox and watch cool movies, and I just felt like so much older, and I was like, oh yay, and it was like more
What was the
exciting.
age difference?
I was 8 at the time, I think, and I think he was like 13 or 14. I don't know exactly, but it was like around there. So he was in his teens, and I was like, I know I was 8. And so that's when we started to get close, and I just remember like we would always go out and jump on the trampoline, and like he would always just let me do activities with him and his friends, and like sometimes he would let Destiny come in, but most of the time he'd be like, no, like only KaleyE's allowed in. And to me, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's so cool. Yeah, and it just made me feel special, especially with like how lonely and low and like angry I was feeling. It was just like it's kind of like my freedom. I could like get away, and I like trusted him a lot, and he kind of reminded me, because like when I was younger, me and my older brother, like when I lived with my mom, me and my older brother didn't really get along at all, because he's older and has his own friends and his own life, and he's a teenager, and I'm a little tiny girl, so so it was kind of cool to have a brother that wanted me to be around. And so to have that was just like really exciting, and we started getting really close, and I just remember like we would always watch movies together, and it was never anything. And then after a while, it started to be like nobody was allowed in the room besides me, and then I felt like really special at first, and I didn't think anything of it. And then it would start to be like nobody's allowed in the room, and the lights have to be off, and the door has to be locked. And I remember one time me and him and Destiny were all watching a movie in our room, like the girls' room, and he had the lights off, and like it was just like me and him laying on the bed, and then Destiny was on the floor, and like we're all siblings, it doesn't matter, we can lay in a bed and watch a movie together. I didn't think anything of it. And then like I remember we heard like footsteps coming down the hallway, and then like the door opened and the light turned on, and he like flung off the bed. And do you need to restart?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
While you're doing that, I'll ask other kind of questions.
Okay.
But, your mom, during that time when your grandma fought and you had the victory and it was in the newspapers,
Yeah.
was she going to Coast Vineyard then, or another church?
No,
Or-
I think she had just started going to
Coast
Coast Vineyard.
Vineyard.
Yeah.
And so maybe too, there was people praying there too.
I'm sure there was. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. I don't know how much of like the church knows about everything, but I
Right.
know that she did start. It was either right before I got back or like a while after, because I know she was already going to Coast Vineyard when I
So what you're talking about now and the time that you got out, and got back to your mom's, how far?
2 years.
2 years, so it was right in the middle, so you've been there, you
Yeah,
stayed
this
4
was
years?
right in the middle, so I was like comfortable with the family now,
Mhm.
really close with the siblings. I mean, Destiny was just my annoying sister, so of course we're gonna fight. And I was her annoying sister that like got spoiled because I have so much other family giving me stuff, you know. So
Mhm.
like, cause I would get to leave and go to my grandma's and stuff, like to go to Jeremiah's grandma's, and I would get like gifts and come back with gifts and like goodies, and she's like, you know. So yeah,
Right.
and I would be frustrated too with like, why don't I get that? But
Right.
she had no idea like what I was really going through. So
Right.
anyways, this one time was when I first started noticing like something obviously wasn't right, was when we were laying in bed like that and the lights were off and everything, and we were just watching, I remember we were watching Mary-Kate and Ashley.
Oh, nice.
And I love Mary-Kate and Ashley. And he like threw himself like the blankets off of us and like moved his arm, because I didn't even notice it, but he had like his arm around like my neck, the back of my neck. And I remember now, like sometimes when my neck gets sweaty or something, I'll have like a flashback of that, and that's like just like little things like that will trigger those flashbacks. And so they turned on the light or whatever, and he like flung the blanket off and like pretended he wasn't even close to me, and I was just like, that was really weird. And then it was the foster mom Karen that came in, and she was just like, hey guys, like time to go to bed or something like that. So we just like turned off the movie and went to bed or something, or like
Is this
just
Karen's blood sibling?
they're actually, Destiny and James are actually her biological niece and nephew, but she adopted them at birth.
Okay.
So technically,
Yeah.
Were
But-
they the only siblings?
and
like
then
the
they had a younger brother, Brayton, who was actually Karen and Rick's only son.
Oh, okay. And how do you spell Brayton?
Wait, hold on. Bratain. I haven't spelled it in so long.
Bray.
Tain. Does that look right?
Bratain.
I think
Brayton. That sounds.
Brayton. I think
Yeah.
that's right.
Okay. Alright.
Anyways, so yeah, that was the first time, and then do you have a question?
No,
Anything else?
you
Okay,
just
I just
however
keep
you
going.
wanna do it.
Okay, and then so like I said, yeah, after that, like it was just more of like the lights off, door locked, and like that was the movie one with like all three of us was in there with. I think that's the first one that I can remember that was like uncomfortable. And then there was another time where we were in his room with his friend, his really close friend that just lived up the hill, that was always over, and we were like, I was laying across the bed like this, and the bed's like facing like this, and I was laying it like this at the end, and then they had like the Xbox and the TV up here.
Yeah.
And I was just laying down on my stomach, and then James like laid his head on my back and was like watching his friend play Xbox, and so it was like no big deal. And then after that, I think his friend walked out of the room or something, and we were both laying on the bed, and I just remember him like pulling me up and like trying to like cuddle with me and stuff, like really awkwardly, and I just felt really uncomfortable, so I got out of that one easily and just like pushed away from it. But from there, I just felt like scared of him almost, so I would try to avoid those situations, you know. And it just kept happening, and like it would just increasingly, like each time would get more and more and harder to get away from him, and he would avoid people more and more. And I don't know, I just remember like the looks he would give me, and like the smell and everything, and that went on for at least a year, and every time like it would get more and more, you know. And he would just tell me like, don't tell anybody or it'll be worse. And like I just remember one time he said something like, don't tell anybody, with like threats of never, you know, see my mom again, or like things like that, you know. Like he knew the things that hurt me and the things I was scared of, so that scared me even more, obviously. And then I just remember like going to sleep sometimes when that would happen, and like having flashbacks of it almost, and I could like feel it all happening, it felt like. And then I would just try to close my eyes and like forget about it, and I would have dreams of like him like pulling me off the end of my bed, because I had a bunk bed, and his room was right next door, so it just really scared me ever since like it started getting bad like that, and so I would just have those like nightmares every single night of him. Just, it's not even like him, just anybody trying to get me like that, because the way I would feel in those situations are just like the most terrifying, horrible dream you've ever had, trying to break away from something and you just can't get away. And I just remember the very last time it happened was it was at night. Yeah, it was at night, and we had like the foster parents had some friends over, and so everyone was distracted like out in the living room, and his room was like back in the end of the hallway sort of. And I remember he had this big like walking stick that he used to like lock his door with. Like if you put the stick on top, it would like lock this bookshelf thing, and you couldn't open the door. And there was like a certain way you had to move it to get it off. And so I just remember him like pulling me in his room or something somehow, and he just was like throwing me onto the bed and like put the blankets on me and like would not let me off, and was just trying to go like, you know, like all the wrong places, and just going really far, and like scary, and like his face expressions and his smell and like that sweat thing again, and just like I just remember like clawing, like just trying to get away from him and pushing away, and just I don't know how to explain what I felt, but it's just like you're trapped. He would trap me on the bed and like push me down and like do weird things, and I just could not get away from it, and it was so scary, and it just ruins, you know, like finally I don't know, I trusted him, and then he does this to me, so I don't know, but in the midst of it, I'm just like trying to get away and break free, and finally I got off of him and like threw myself off the bed, and obviously he's gonna come after me, because at this point I have to tell somebody.
Right.
Like now I know that this is way too far and this is wrong, and I mean, I'm 8 years old, I know that this isn't right.
Yeah.
Right.
And for a while, like, I knew it wasn't right, but he scared the crap out of me. I couldn't tell somebody, but I couldn't let him do this to me anymore. So finally I tried to like get to the door, and I just remember him like pulling me and trying to stop me from getting to the door, and then finally I got to the door, and of course the stick is there, and I'm just beating on him, trying to let him like get me out of there, because I was so scared, and I just remember him like covering my mouth not to scream, and I can't even scream at that point because I'm so like out of breath, scared, and it was just like the most terrifying thing. It's not even like a scary movie of a lady trying to get away. Like it's so real and so scary, and it's the hardest thing I've ever gone through. And finally I just remember like making eye contact with him, bawling my eyes out, like shaking, and just so I can just see myself like beet red. I'm sure he had welts on his back, like from me trying to get away from him, and I would dig my nails into him to try to get him off of me, and just kick. I did everything I could, and he would not get off. And finally, I gave him that look at the end, and I was shaking and crying, and he's like, "You better not tell anybody." And then like threw the stick and let me out, and he like slammed his door behind me, and I fell over in the hallway right there and bawled my eyes out, and I don't think I've ever cried that hard in my life, and I just cried and cried. And then Destiny is the one who found me laying in the hallway, and she was just like brought me into her room, and she's like, "Tell me what's going on," because I'm sure she noticed like things were weird, and it was her and one of the girlfriends that we're so close with was over, and they just sat me down, and they're just like, "Tell me everything," and I just let it all out and told them absolutely everything that happened, and I was so scared for my life. I did not think that he was gonna let me live after I told them everything, because I mean they're a Christian family, and that's such a disgrace to their family and to everything, you know, like it was awful. So I told them everything, and they had me tell the foster parents, and from that point, the foster parents, they grounded him for a week, and they were state, right? So
Right.
they should legally tell somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's their own family, so I guess it
Did they
doesn't
not
matter.
tell somebody?
They didn't tell
in
anybody.
the state?
And so he
Oh
got
my
grounded.
goodness.
He got grounded for a week, and I had to go to bed every single night after that. I got nightmares before that, and after that, I had to go to bed every single night right next to his room, knowing that I told somebody, and he promised me that he would do something worse to me if I told anybody, and I wouldn't be able to see my mom. And then, like, I don't know, half a year later or something, I was told I was being adopted, and so there he goes. He's right. Like, if I told somebody I wasn't going to see my mom again. And so then I got told I was going to be adopted, and that's when I knew. I was just like, I have to live with him for the rest of my life. And, well, until I'm 18, but in my mind, I'm like, I have to live with him
Right.
forever.
Because you were just 8 or 9, right, at this point?
Yeah, I was 10 now, so I guess it was almost 2 years later. I had to live with him, and I remember we would go on camping trips. Like, we went camping every summer, and it was just so scary being anywhere close to him. I mean, after a little while, I got over it, and like, because they would talk with me about it, you know, and try to like help me forgive him every day, and I just couldn't forgive somebody who doesn't know he did wrong. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They would tell me he knows he did wrong. He knows he's different now, and he's changed, and I tried to believe that, like, God can change people, you know, but like I said, then it was forced on me. I didn't want to believe in God and
Right.
forgiveness and God can change people.
Right.
I didn't care.
Especially when they
It
hadn't
was
protected
scary.
you.
Yeah, nobody protected me, and I just felt so alone.
Would
and
she
so
be more watchful?
helpless. Would I be?
Karen?
I don't know. I don't remember. All I remember is trying to stay as far away from him as I can. And in a way, I don't think they believed me. That's what I felt like the whole time, is that they didn't believe me. But
What about Destiny?
I think Destiny believed me, and I think that she now, like, when I try to, it's really awkward to talk with anybody about it now. I
Yeah.
just try to avoid the whole subject, but now, like, when I brought it up to her a couple times, I think she knows that her parents did wrong.
Right.
Like, I don't know exactly what the whole state DHS rules are, but I think she knows that something more could be done, or maybe, I don't know, there's something, I feel like that there's something there where she is on my side, because I don't know if it's something maybe happened to her, or because, yeah, but there's just like, I don't know.
Right.
You know, there's other people that I know now that have had the same thing happen to them by the same person. So that's what made me realize that, like, he wasn't forgiven. Like,
He
you
didn't
know,
get better.
yeah.
Yeah, he was a predator.
So, yeah, after that is when I found out, like, 2 years later, that I was going to be adopted, and that's when that's my whole, like, I was like, why would I ever tell somebody about that? I should have just let it happen. And then I felt like everything again, like, from the very beginning was my fault, you know, because I was the only one that went to foster care, and then this happens to me, and now I'm getting adopted. Like, it just all added up to, in my own head, like, it was all my fault. And my mom's better off without me anyways, and I just had, like, all these thoughts. And I just didn't want anything to do with anybody, and I just didn't want anything to really do with my own life. Like, I just, and, like, as a 10-year-old getting told that, like, well, first of all, looking back at all that stuff just happened, and now you're getting adopted into this family, I was like, what's the point of this?
Right.
Like, where am I going to go with this family, really? Even though I do love them like family, I did not want anything to do with them anymore. I had so much resentment over them, and it was just, adoption was the last thing I wanted.
Yeah.
Did you say he went to jail?
Yeah, he's in jail now for a totally different thing. It has nothing to do with that, but when I did move back in with my mom, it was like 2 years later. I didn't tell her about anything like that. I didn't want to, I didn't ever want to bring it up again, you know, like, now I'm getting to move in with my mom, and my life is looking up, and I never wanted to think about it again, but
Right.
I would get flashbacks really, really bad. And one time we were watching this called Sherry Baby, and there was this part in the movie where the dad, she's like older, she's grown up, and she has a baby, this girl, and the dad was like getting all touchy-feely with his daughter, and that's just like totally threw me off, and I had really bad flashbacks sitting there watching the movie with my mom, and I just started bawling from that scene. And the movie still lasted like an hour, and I bawled through the whole entire movie. I didn't even know what happened after that scene. And I just cried and cried and cried, and my mom turned off the movie at the end, and she's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like, she just knew. She's like, is there something you need to tell me? Like, she didn't know from that scene. She just knew, like, I never cry for that long about something random in a movie. And so, obviously, she knew there was something, and I just broke down and told her everything, and she was
horrified.
Oh my gosh. The only I think she hated herself more than anything because she, in her mind, it was her fault because she put me through that, you know, which I would never blame her for even me going to foster care.
Yeah.
I wouldn't blame her for that, but
Did she ever try and take action?
she did. She did take action actually right away. She reported it, and DHS and police officers went to their house and pretty much put the lowdown on him. But I mean, there's nothing. They don't have official proof, and it was too long ago, and the age.
Yeah.
There was no like illegalness, and they didn't report it, so nothing could really be done, which is fine. And at that point, I didn't want James to get in trouble because I had grown up. I was like 14, and I didn't want to bring it up again, like I said, and I didn't want their family to go through that, and I didn't want. I was kind of mad at my mom for reporting it, honestly, but it did reassure me that James will never touch me again.
Yes. Yeah.
And
that you have a protector.
hopefully he'll never touch anybody like that again.
Right.
Because now it's proven that something will be done about it, and so, and now I have a protector also, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you go to counseling for the abuse?
Yes, when, like around that same time when I told my mom was middle school, and I would get really, really bad flashbacks. Like, I don't know, boys, I've always been closer to boys than girls, and I've always had guy friends, and that was really, really hard, mostly because they would treat me like a guy friend, you know, which is fine with me, because that's how I would want them to treat me, you know, like oh, you're so hot, you know, like whatever, and like flirt with me all the time. I would want them to treat me like one of their friends, and so they did, and they would just come up and be like, oh, what's up, and like put their arms around me. As soon as I felt their arms around me, I would get a flashback, and I would just freak out and like, don't touch me, just and then sometimes I would just like let myself like get through it, but then it was like 10 times worse later, and I would have like the dreams and flashbacks, and just for so long it haunted me. It was there all the time, and I just always felt like he was still after me, and like I felt sometimes like it was still happening, and I needed to do something about it, you know. It was just like always that. It was almost like guilt on me, but I don't know, it was just, so those flashbacks were getting really bad in middle school when I started to like go and hang out with people and like go to the movies and just like things like that, you know, just like those little things, and it was hard for me to be a normal teenager with those flashbacks there, because they would stop me from, I mean, in a lot of ways it was probably good, because sometimes some of the guys were a little over the top and would try to do different things, and I was a middle schooler, so maybe that was the first trigger, but I think a lot of it was, it absolutely stopped me from ever wanting to do anything, like, ever. I never wanted to touch a guy, like, I just, it was not the last thing I wanted to be involved with, and it scared me really, really bad.
Do you still sometimes get flashbacks? Already? Oh my gosh, fast. Okay. I feel like school's almost about to end.
I'm gonna stand up because I'm hearing everything, but my mind is, and I'm just, I didn't sleep well last night, so it's been a hard week. I'm gonna stand up because that wakes my brain up.
Yeah, I know. My head's
still, everything,
Yeah.
it's all horrible. It's all
Yeah.
horrible. It's all horrible, but.
Well, I guess, I did have a few more questions, is that okay?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, alright. Sorry. Still going?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you still get flashbacks? Or when did you last?
Well, yeah, I would say not necessarily like the flashbacks like I used to, but sometimes there's like certain face expressions that people will make, or like a certain smell. Smells are like really bad for me for some reason, because I just remember like being under those covers, stuck, and not being able to get out, you know, and just that feeling. And I don't know what it is. There's a look and a smell that
Brings.
it just
Yeah.
totally brings like uncomfortness and
That feeling.
that feeling of like, get me out of here, get away from me. And sometimes it like breaks my heart, because sometimes it's like with Blake, and not like he's trying to do anything to me
Right,
ever, but there's
right.
just like a certain look he'll give me sometimes, and I'm like, I freak out. I try my hardest not to show it, and I don't even really like talking to him about it. Like, he knows everything that's happened, but he doesn't know when I get those feelings.
Yeah.
Like, and I really try not to show it, because I don't want to make him feel like he's making me uncomfortable,
Yeah.
because it's not his fault at all.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and there's nothing he can do about it. I mean, he's just
Yeah.
looking at
He's
me,
just
and it just triggers it. It triggers a whole new fear. And so it's definitely still there. And sometimes it'll happen with like my stepdad, or it used to be really bad with my stepdad, and now it's more my stepbrother. He actually
Sam or?
Sam, yeah, and he lives with us, so it's hard. But I don't know, he's kind of taken it over the edge too, and that was me and my stepbrother started to get really close, and then that happened. Like, he tried to convince me that he wanted to come cuddle with me until I fell asleep. And like, I never let it happen, obviously, because I knew that was wrong, but
Right.
that's just like, why does this happen to me? Every time I get close with somebody, I feel like they have to step over the line like that.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's so hard. And then some of like, it's still like that with like my guy friends. Like, I'll get really close to a guy, and then all of a sudden he'll tell me, oh, I love you, you're amazing, you're so hot, like blah blah. And it's
Yeah.
just like, it's not like they're trying to do anything, but I'm
Right.
like, why?
Can't you
I
just be
just
friends?
trust you,
Right.
and now
Yeah.
you have to step over the line. And so it's just like that. In a way, like, it has built me really good boundaries, but it breaks my heart, especially when it involves Blake like
Yeah.
that, or anybody, you know, but Blake especially, because it just makes me want to not be close to anybody, really. It puts a huge guard up and makes it really hard for me to connect with a lot of people.
Yeah. But speaking of Blake, I mean, you guys are obviously been together for like a year now, more than a year.
A year,
So-
yeah, a little bit more than a year.
So, I mean, how was that? Was that hard at first, or?
Yeah, at first it was really hard. I don't know. It was weird because his atmosphere was a totally different atmosphere than mine. And when I first met him, his family atmosphere was a lot like my mom's used to be before I got into foster care and everything. So that scared me, but in a way it made me want to like get closer to him. And which is, it sounds so wrong in a way, but the way we bonded in a whole different area was just like incredible. And I just like really felt like I wasn't supposed to leave, even though it didn't seem like the right situation for me and like the right crowd. And I just had like something in the back of my mind, and a lot of people tell me that's God's voice, but I just have a really hard time hearing what's God's voice and what's my own mind. But I just listened and kept staying, and his family is incredible now.
Really?
Is incredible. His mom's a whole different person.
God.
And yeah, and it's just, I feel like my past really like stuck out in their family, because little things, you know, I would tell them, or I would just see, and I would get frustrated with Blake because of the people like he was letting come around.
Yeah.
And then his mom would see that and be like, you know what, she's right, like why do I put up with all these people coming into my house? And eventually she absolutely is so strict on who comes in her house, and it's just like amazing the way that their family has changed. And Blake alone, like on his own, I mean, he says like, without you I don't know like how I, like he's like, when I got with you I just looked at life a whole new way. And there's just like things that he saw in me and I saw in him that like brought the best out. And he did, even though he doesn't know it, I think he really helped me get through like the flashbacks and past them, because
And trust me.
and trust, definitely trust, because he never pushed me over that edge. And in a way, like, you don't have to put this in the interview thing, but like in a way, when, because I lost my virginity to him and I never thought I would lose it before I got married, but I think like how much I did trust him almost put me over the edge. Like maybe I trusted him too much at first, but the way he made me feel was that I could trust him, and he never made me pressured. He never made me feel like that. And I think that's why I did. I was like, you know what, this is the one guy that will never make me do it. And I totally wasn't thinking when I let it happen. I should have never let it happen. But I mean, but still, it's just like that trust thing is he never pressures me for anything, and that's, I think that is one thing that I absolutely love about him. Like no matter what it is, he would suggest me not to do something that he knows I'd be uncomfortable with. Not, you know, even if he would want me to do it, he would be like, you know what, you're not uncomfortable with this. Don't do it. You know, not like, come on, like you can do it. Even if it's like taking a test on the wrong day, like if you don't feel comfortable, just don't do it. Like you know, just like little things. And so I don't know.
And that's just what you need. So.
And so I think that being with Blake has really helped with the trust thing. I mean, obviously we've broken each other's trust a couple times, but in
That's
a way
expected.
we have to do that to get past it sometimes. So
At least you can still build.
yeah.
And I think just one more question with your mom. How, I mean, afterwards, was your guys' relationship, was it hard at first, or did you guys get right back into it?
No, it was, I remember it being really awkward and uncomfortable at first because I didn't know her. I mean, I haven't lived with her in 4 years, and when I did live with her, she was tiny and crazy and fun and like, woo! Like, you know, she's, and she had people around all the time, and then when I got back, she's 100% different. She has this boyfriend that she loves, her fiance, my stepdad now, and so it was just a whole different atmosphere.
How old were you, 12 then?
I was 10 when I moved in with her, and so I think we started off really awkward and just a whole new lifestyle, and then that was the lifestyle we knew we were going to live like for the rest of our lives together. So we just kind of started to make the best out of it and be really thankful, and we talked about a lot. Like I think that's what hit off our relationship so well, is like I was so curious of the truth, you know, like what were all lies that I heard and what's the truth. And I knew my mom would tell me the truth even if it was hard. And she told me everything, and that meant the most. Is like that's all I wanted this whole time, was to just know the truth. And since day one, we just knew like we could tell each other anything, and it's never changed. And obviously we've had our rough patches. I mean, I'm a teenage girl who gets tired of her mom sometimes, but I'm sure she gets tired of me. But we really are so close now, and can tell each other everything, and just there's no weird times. There's nothing awkward. You know, like we've been through the roughest of the rough, and she never gave up like I thought she did. You know, and she protected me when I needed protection. And like nobody else did. And she's never broke my trust. So.
So, what's KaleyE Day? I heard about that.
KaleyE Day